Hello everybody, I've wanted to make a video for a while now after I've seen a lot of YouTubers talk about the fall of modern Total War, particularly Legend of Total War, Voland, Pixelated Apollo, and I suppose this is sort of a reply to them, but a lot of things that I haven't seen covered in their debates. I've been playing Total War since Rome 1, and I feel like the discussion between historical and fantasy Total War and on the fall of modern Total War, there's been some particular aspects which haven't covered how I feel about it, but also haven't covered how many people who are similar to me and who are the same things as me also feel about it. So hopefully you can watch this and maybe this opens up some eyes to why Total War I think is falling. And there's been particular points here that I don't think have been covered by some of the bigger YouTubers and some of the people that have covered this before. And I suppose this video is also really a defense of Empire Total War, which I know gets a lot of hate. Everyone seems to always hate on Empire. Yes, it's extremely janky, even with Darth mod and Empire 2 and all the other mods. And the game, to be fair, has many flaws, right? Which are game breaking at best and ignorant at worst. I'm talking about the lack of slavery mechanic, which better games like EU4 have tastefully dealt with. I've wanted to make this video for a while now because I've listened to many Total War YouTubers and no one quite captures how I and how many people who are similar to me feel about the topic, about the fall of modern Total War, the progression of Sega and Creative Assembly to cater to a much more simpler audience with the later Warhammer titles, and they seem to be taking their historical legacy not quite seriously. I play Total War, and I have done since Rome 1, 20 years ago now. And I'm interested because I like history and I like strategy. I'm not always good at either, but I like to insert myself into that world. And Total War bullied my existence into a shared event that I could insert myself into the narrative there. And so my problem with modern Total War is everything happens so fast. Modern Total War feels like it's been simplified for a dumbed down audience. Like it doesn't take the player's time seriously. Warhammer 3 is the biggest example of this. The battles are just way too quick. No skirmishing, there's barely any layup, and the battles mostly last 15 to 30 minutes, if they're any good. Many are, way less 5-minute battles. But Empire and Napoleon have such a larger scope of battles. And this is one of the points that I don't think gets covered in the modern legacy of Total War debates. They talk about the old mechanics and things like that dying off, but one of the key things that I think is forgotten about is the pace of battles. In Empire and Napoleon, I've had full battles that open with large cavalry movements, and I've been able to execute strategy with light infantry and good positioning. Battles can genuinely last a full hour of strategy. And I feel like the game takes my time seriously. In multiplayer, Napoleon and Empire are actually the only games where a multi-stage battle can really take place. I'm talking skirmishing actions and cavalry movements into line infantry backed up with artillery and counter-artillery. This momentum just isn't possible with later Total War games because they just lack the patience. Also, by the way, naval battles. Hello. They don't get nearly the love they should. The detail of these ships and sea battles are quite literally the best ever put to game. All of these YouTubers who can win impossible battles, these ridiculous odds that you can manage to game around, I challenge any of you to win an impossible battle on those OG naval battles where genuine strategy rewards victory. That enterprise creates a really super fucking rewarding experience that values my time without any gamey bollocks strat here. Empire genuinely had soul and had heart, and it belongs alongside EU4 in executing some of the best ways in gaming to experience that period of time. My main problem with Total War nowadays is it's been dumbed down and simplified. Empire and Napoleon are the only games where you can actually execute genuine strategic value on a battlefield by pressuring certain choke points and things like that, and you force the... You see what I mean? You can't do that in the other Total War games because they last like 20 minutes. Fall of the Samurai, if you've got 4 parrot guns, you've basically won the game. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can win any... With 4 parrot guns, you win any siege, basically. And so although I love Fall of the Samurai, that you just make an American Civil War game with bigger scope where you can have actual like cavalry actions and things. I mean, in the actual Napoleonic Wars, that's literally what was going on. There was skirmishing actions, there was cavalry movements. And Total War's just been simplified to a point where it's made for children. The fact that Empire was released recently on mobile. Who the fuck is playing Empire on mobile? Like, what the fuck, man? Like, are you on a fucking tablet or something? Like, I've only got a small, like, I've got an iPhone, I suppose, but I couldn't imagine fucking use my thumbs to play Empire. Awful. I just don't understand who bought this, who's doing this, and are these the same people that buy Warhammer? I play Warhammer sometimes, and I'm interested in fantasy, and I like engaging in that world. I quite like Games Workshop, and I dabble into Warhammer as a hobby, but it certainly doesn't scratch the same itch as a historical Total War. On the sort of popular critiques as well that I don't really agree with, and I sort of get confused by a lot of this. I saw a criticism, and this is tangential by the way, and I do a lot of tangents if you haven't noticed. I saw a criticism recently on Steam of Thrones of Britannia, and it said that the game felt too fast because you can snowball through an area with very little pushback because the only province capitals have garrisons, right? And this isn't a defense on Thrones of Britannia, by the way, although I do think it's underrated. But it's still on this particular mechanic. And I think this particular mechanic highlights a wider issue in the player base and what they're expecting from their Total War games. And so the critique, in other words, the smaller sub-settlements could be taken without resistance if no other army was present. Right, so you have the capital, and there's a garrison, and if you take and then the smaller sub-settlements, the farms and things like that, which are full settlements in this game. They're not just sort of like icons on a map like in Shogun or in Empire. They're full. It's sort of like Warhammer 3. If there's no army present, then they can be taken without any resistance. And someone said, well, that creates a very fast-paced environment, which it does do, by the way. And I suppose that's a valid critique of the game, or it would be if in the 9th century, why would a monastery or a farm have a garrison? In fact, in the period, most locals would seek shelter in the nearest fortification. So the surrounding provinces do not have a garrison because why would they unless levied troops were present? And I think that speaks to modern Total War players needing that gaming experience. Warhammer is as gamey as it comes. But Fall of the Samurai isn't actually much better at all. I love Fall of the Samurai, by the way. I think it's one of the best games you can play if you want to experience that 1860s Civil War period, really, in America. Why they haven't done a Civil War game when Fall of the Samurai exists, I don't know. They probably should, to be fair. Way before 40k. But I suppose the money's not there, is it? But the problem with Fall of the Samurai is once you have 4 units of artillery, the game is easy mode. The battles are over in like 10 minutes, unless the odds are stacked against you, because everyone in that game is so damn accurate. And, is this a problem, really? And I'm not sure it is a problem, even though I've just said it is. Because if you consider the 1860s, I don't think it's an inflated accuracy. I think it's just a very fast-paced time. Yes, the battles are small in scope, and that makes it feel fast. So the problem there isn't that the gameplay is fast, it's that they failed to make a landscape fit the period. And I think, it worked really great as a saga game. I think it's a really perfect sort of isolated example of what a saga sort of standalone DLC title, which what it originally was really good. Now let's do a full game for the American Civil War, which not that really interested in American Civil War, to be fair, just FYI. But it would be a perfect exercise for this sort of gameplay, this mechanics, and why would you not? It caters for like a large proportion of the audience. And, I doubt any developers in Creative Assembly share any of these views. And, why would they when the fat cats at Sega just make so much off of recycling Warhammer into literally 3 games? But I want to ask people this. Who really likes bullshit RPG mechanics? A general levels up and you choose where the points go. This is a fucking Bethesda game. The roleplay should be a consequence of gameplay. The traits should evolve based on how you play. And half the roleplay is in Creative Assembly executing a grown-up representation of the period. I don't want fucking cartoon arrow trails following my archers or a skill tree and fucking loot box mechanics in my game. If you want a general to improve their bodyguard, they spend a turn in a settlement with a militia or an armory. Mods have literally done this in Medieval 2. It's possible. And I think because of this, Creative Assembly have just simply burned their core audience who now probably just play Paradox games.